Hi, and welcome back for part 2 of my 3-part series, One Craft Essential All Card Makers Need. If you missed my first video, the craft essential I talked about was alpha dies, in particular large alpha dies. I did use it as a focal point on my card. I used some ultra thick embossing powder to give it a patent leather appearance, and I spoke about why alpha dies are an important piece to have in your arsenal, and I will link that video at the end of this one. Here's a look at the Scrappy Tails Crafts products that I'll be using. I have the cute Halloween 5-layer stencil and then the Purr-Fect Halloween night die set. Here's that first card that I created using both of those Scrappy Tails Crafts products and a large die. You can see that the large alpha die did take up a lot of real estate on the front of my card. This is a 5x7 card. I used it as a focal point. Today I'm going to use those large dies again, except this time I'm going to be pairing it with the remaining piece of our 5-layer stencil, some black cardstock, and then a smaller alpha die from Tim Holtz. So having a couple alpha dies in your crafty stash can save you a lot of money on sentiments and creating custom sayings on your card. I have both the large and the small. I'll be cutting those out of black cardstock off camera. Let's jump into the technique that I wanted to share with the large alpha die. So in the first card, again, I just want to reiterate that we did use the large alpha as the focal sentiment. We didn't use any other dies with that. You're going to get smaller words when you use large alpha dies, but they do make a big impact on your cards. I had a piece of the cute Halloween 5-layer stenciled background that I created in video number 1, and I am using it to cut out the word boo. So the word boo is going to be part of my sentiment on my card. You can use these dies with patterned paper. That is one way to use them. As I mentioned in my last video, I inked up my die cuts, and then I used the ultra thick embossing powder, which gave it that nice shine. In this one, I want to make sure, because I am going to use the small alphas in black as well, I want to incorporate that into my large sentiment that's going to go beneath that. So I will cut the word boo out a second time using that black cardstock. When I did my stenciling, I also have some black bats, and I have some spiders, and I want to make that black stand out just a little bit more. So here are both of the die cut pieces, the boos, and I am going to offset them. So for the first bee, I accidentally added my glue to the black one. You really want to add it to the one that's going to layer on top. So fortunately, I use art glitter glue, and I'm going to be able to clean up the excess glue on this. But you can see that what I'm doing is I'm adding glue to the stenciled letter, and then I'm laying it on top of the black cardstock, and I'm offsetting it. So I'm leaving just about a 1/4 inch on the left side with that black peeking through. I do a slight adjustment where I slide it down, and this is where wet glue is really fabulous. So there's a look at both of the sentiments. You can see that they do look quite different. Make sure when you are thinking about using your alphas that you look at some of the patterned paper that you have in your stash. That's another great way to add a little bit more oomph to your panel. Let's create a background for our sentiment. I'm starting with some Fossilized Amber because I did cut out a moon using the Purr-Fect Halloween night. And I want to just add some color into the background. I really love picked raspberry with Seedless Preserves, and I'm adding streaks across the sky. So I'm not going to have a perfectly blended where you have one color and the next color and the next color. We are going to incorporate several different colors, this one being Seedless Preserves, into one background. Again, you can see that I'm going horizontally more so than all around the panel. And once I get this color down, I'll bring back in my picked raspberry and add a little bit more, I believe, of that to this panel. I'm being fairly light-handed, and then I'm adding more pressure as I go along. You'll notice as we create this panel that it's not going to be perfect. I use accent opaque cardstock. I believe this is 80-pound cardstock when I do my ink blending. If you're looking for a super smooth blend, I understand, I don't use it, but I understand that the Bristol Smooth is a great one to get a good blend, but I tend to add a lot of layers when I'm creating backgrounds, and so I'll do some water splattering and add a little bit of watercolor to the background. And once you do all of that and the colors dry back, it all blends together beautifully. So I want to add a little bit of blue, and that blue is also going to mix in with the Seedless Preserves and give us a little bit of a darker purple. So I'm bringing in some Prized Ribbon, which is one of my favorite blue distress ink colors. And again, I'm adding it streakily across my panel. Here's that little half moon that I'll be adding, and I think that I want a little bit more of a glow. And what's nice about distress inks is that you can layer them on top of each other, and so I'm going to extend that glow just a little bit using that Fossilized Amber. And then to add some depth and some darkness to this card, I'm going to add black soot around the edges. Once I get this black soot added, you'll see that it just kind of gives it that, you know, spooky kind of Halloween night scene. And then I lose some of that Prized Ribbon, so I'll add a little bit more of that Prized Ribbon in the areas where I added the black soot, just trying to get a little bit of that blue back into the card panel. Here's my favorite part. I'm going to clap some water over the top. You can splatter it with your fingers, you can spray it with a spray bottle, you can use the nozzle, multiple ways to lay color down. Clapping gives me, in my opinion, the perfect size droplets and the amount that I need, so that's my preferred method. And then before I'm adding this gold watercolor, I did dry my panel. I have a fan brush which allows me to get a lot of splatter, and it's also going to give me the right size droplets that I'm looking for. So that's my favorite brush to add lots of gold shimmer to my background. Again, with the watercolor, I do want to dry my panel before I move on to my next step. Now this is pretty dark, and you can see that my sentiment is pretty whimsical. I need to find a way to incorporate that white into my card so that that boo doesn't look misplaced. So what I did is I cut my panel down, the one that we ink blended, to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. I attached it to an A2 top folding card base. So this card base is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And now that I have that white border around the edges, it changes the vibe of my card. So now adding that white patterned boo is not going to look misplaced. Again, I mentioned that I cut my word hey out of black cardstock. I cut it 3 separate times and I glued each of them together so that I get a nice chipboard appearance. That black that I used to offset the word boo, again, is tying in with that top sentiment. And you can see how nicely it fits together to have that one standout word with the large alpha dies, and then to have the smaller alpha dies and be able to add a or a sentiment above it or a word above it to complete your sentiment, and it gives a lot more interest. The kitty cat and all the rest of the accent pieces do come from the Purr-Fect Halloween night. I stacked her 3 times and then I added the details with some white gel pen, a little bit of pink on the nose and the ears, and I used some green jewels for the eyes. You'll notice in my finished card that I did not like the white accents. So I added the white accents because I did have the white in the word boo, and I wanted again to just kind of lighten up the feel of this card. I ended up cutting a 4th one out, keeping it black, adding the accent pieces, the green for the eyes, and just not adding the glazed pen over the top of the cat. So you'll see that in my finished card. I placed the clouds, again part of the Purr-Fect Halloween night die set, and that gives it just this nice little there's a little bit of spookiness to it with the way that the sky is and having those bats, but then we also have the whimsical feel with the adorable cat and the patterned boo, which just gives it a lighter feel. Now, you certainly could cut that boo out of glitter cardstock. That would be another option for this card. Again, it's going to change the vibe. So when you're looking at creating your cards and you're cutting out your alphas and deciding on the different colors that you want to use, just think about the vibe that you want to have on the card. I like cutesy Halloween cards, not so much the scary ones, and so the vibe that I was going for was a little bit more cuter and lighthearted. I'll get all of these pieces glued down, and that will finish my card. When I come back with part 3, it will be on Sunday the 20th for my Oh So Inspired hop. I wanted to mention that. If you haven't hopped along, I will have my Instagram link in the description box below. This is part of the Scrappy Tails Crafts Instagram hop. There is a $25 gift card that is available to one lucky winner. I believe it's one lucky winner. There may be 2. All of the information, again, is going to be on my Instagram account. Hop along. There are so many amazing creators that are creating some fabulous cards using these amazing Scrappy Tails products. I really highlighted the 2 that I used on my card today in video number 1, so it will be linked at the end of this video, and you can get a really good look at the amazing Purr-Fect Halloween night and how I colored up the cute Halloween 5-layer stencil. I hope this series is really beneficial to those of you that are especially new to crafting and are seeing all the wonderful dies that are sentiments. This is a way that you can get that same look with a smaller investment by just investing in a couple alpha dies that are going to give you a plethora of sentiments on your cards. I'll be back with part 3 again on Sunday. I hope to see you over on my Instagram. Don't forget to comment to enter to win one of those gift cards. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks for taking time to watch.